Hi, my name's Amanda, and today we're going to be talking about the age of the caffeine craze, the harmful and the helpful effects that caffeine has on our bodies. When you woke up this morning, did you have a cup of coffee? Did you drive to Starbucks or Dunkin' and order your favorite cold brew? Before you went to the gym or work, did you have a scoop of pre-workout or your favorite energy drink? These things all contain caffeine, and caffeine has a huge impact on all of our lives every day. It gives us energy to fight fatigue, and with the fast-paced lifestyle of many people today, society has found itself indulged in caffeine. I know a lot of you have waited on extremely long lines at Starbucks or Dunkin' before school or work. I know I have. So why? When did our society become so reliant on this substance, and when did it come to be? What positive effects and negative effects are associated with it, and what are we putting into our bodies and why? Today we're going to talk about these things, the history and when it came to become such a critical part of pop culture and modern society, and the positive and negative effects it has on our bodies. So let's begin with when it all started. But first, to begin with the history of caffeine, we have to briefly explain what it is. So what is caffeine? Caffeine is a naturally occurring stimulant that can be isolated from over 60 plants, but can also be made synthetically and added to our everyday food products and medications. In its pure form, caffeine is a white powder that is very bitter. Caffeine is a drug-like substance that shares traits with other addictive substances such as amphetamines, cocaine, and heroin. It's a psychoactive drug and uses the same biochemical functions as these drugs to stimulate brain function. It's found in products like coffee, soda, energy drinks, chocolate, tea, and much more. Caffeine has been around for thousands of years. It traces back as far as 2700 BC, with the first utilization in tea leaves for energy. One of the most known first findings of caffeine is in Ethiopia. As the folklore tells it, a farmer found his goats were being restless and antsy, and he noticed that they were grazing on small berries at the time, he called them, and now they come to be known as coffee beans or cocoa beans. Caffeine was first extracted from these cocoa beans by a German scientist, and this was in its purest form. He extracted caffeine from these cocoa beans. It's fairly easy now because of how much of a commodity it is. So caffeine has also become recently huge in pop culture and the culture of cultural identity in general. So now that we have a little background on the history and origin of caffeine, let's talk about the history of caffeine in pop culture. Let's talk about coffee houses, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, world-dominating industries. These sugary energy drinks hold a unique spot in our culture. Coffee houses have proven the popularity across America, and Starbucks alone has 11,100 stores, and they have grown on average of 2 stores per day for the last 27 years to just show how much of a big business they are and how much they influence our culture. The willingness of buyers to buy such a common commodity for an overpriced indulgence, it shows that people are willing to pay for this to sustain this culture. And with this influence it has over us, we dive into the question of what it's doing to our bodies. Are there positive effects? Are there negative effects that have such an influence over our lives? So some of the positive effects of caffeine is physical health, weight loss. Caffeine helps to burn fat or prevent weight gain by suppressing the appetite and temporarily reducing desire to eat. It can reduce risk of illness, including type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, and dementia. A study shows that participants who increased their coffee intake by more than 1 cup a day over a 4-year period had a 1% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to people who did not change their intake. There's also mental health benefits, memory. A study suggests that a dose of caffeine after a learning session may help boost your long-term memory. Brain function, caffeine affects receptors in the brain, and it contains antioxidants, and these two can act on various pathways of your brain. It also affects performance as the third way. It alters and improves energy levels. It also helps physical and academic performance. It can improve physical performance during endurance exercises and increases endurance capacity and reduction in perceived exertion. So some of the negative effects on the flip side of caffeine are the side effects in general of caffeine. So some of the side effects include insomnia, which is caffeine's ability to help people stay awake, is one of the most prized qualities, but it can also be one of the most difficult because it causes insomnia. Consuming caffeine 3 to 6 hours before going to bed can really significantly disrupt your sleep. Up to 6 hours before bedtime, it can reduce objectivity, and it can alter your sleep time by more than an hour. Digestive issues, many people find that a morning cup of coffee can upset their stomach, and coffee acting as this laxative can be attributed to the release of gastrin. Caffeine also seems to manipulate bowel movements by increasing peristalsis, which is the contractions of muscles in your stomach to go through your digestive tract. Another side effect of caffeine is addiction. Despite all of its health benefits, there's no denying that it's habit forming. A detailed review suggests that although caffeine triggers certain brain chemicals, similarly to the way cocaine and amphetamines do, it does not cause classic addiction the way these drugs do, but it does lead to psychological or physical dependency, especially in high degrees. A second negative effect of caffeine is the withdrawal effects. It's known to increase alternativeness. It works by blocking the effect of a brain chemical that makes you feel tired. So at the same time, it triggers a release of adrenaline and the fight or flight hormone associated with increased energy. At higher doses, it can affect these effects can be more pronounced, and it can cause anxiety and nervousness. There's also caffeine withdrawal headache because caffeine narrows the blood vessels that surround your brain. When consumption is stopped, these blood vessels enlarge, and this causes an increase in blood flow around your brain and pressures the nerves in your brain to cause these migraines or headaches. Too much caffeine also is a negative effect, as the third negative effect. It can cause depression, it can cause headaches, it can cause a slew of problems. But one of the effects of too much caffeine is depression. A high intake of caffeine can worsen symptoms of anxiety and depression. A research published in 2016 found that 234 middle school students in Korea that took a higher caffeine intake, it was linked to higher weight, lower academic achievement, and a higher risk of severe depression. So in conclusion, caffeine is a substance with much history, and it influences our whole world today. It affects our body in more ways than we can even name. It affects it negatively, positively. To sum up, caffeine stimulates our nervous system. History is tied to many parts of the world, including Germany and Ethiopia. It influences our culture in the United States today, and things such as coffee shops and Starbucks, big name brands like that. And there are positive and negative effects that we discussed. So now that you know about the history of caffeine, the positive and negative effects, does it make you think any differently about caffeine? And that's going to be what I'm going to leave you with is, does it make you reflect on some of these symptoms? Do you feel these symptoms positively or negatively as a result of caffeine? Are you going to change the amount of caffeine you consume as a result of this? And yeah, thank you.